Welcome, welcome. I love from all over the world here. We've got an international group, and thank you so much for joining me today and all of us. I'm Leisa Peterson. I am really excited to present this information. Last week, I did a workshop. Yeah, we're introducing ourselves, Gloria. Thank you. Go ahead and say where you're located and what's your favorite treat or dessert or something like that. So I taught a workshop last week, and what I'm doing here in this workshop is I am consolidating, bringing that information into, rather than being 5 hours, 90 minutes, I'm going to break it into 3 different parts, and you'll kind of catch the flow of what's going on in that. We will be doing some meditation. We will be talking about the inner journey and understanding how that applies to prosperity. We'll also be talking about, some action steps or some things that you can do leading from this call, like what does it inspire you to think about creating in your own life? How can you use this work to help you create more prosperity, more wealth? The idea was what you probably don't know about wealth creation, and this has been a journey of mine for the past, I'd say, 30 years, and I'm going to explain as much as I can. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I want you to have some very actionable ideas as a result of today's conversation, and have fun because we can dive inside and see what's going on the inner journey and get some really good kind of feelings about where we're at and what we're wanting to create for ourselves. It's kind of like the middle of the year. In COVID years, it's like this really weird time zone that we've entered, but yes, it's the middle of the year. Yes, we have 5 months, I guess, remaining to create. And I think that I love doing mid-year reviews. So that's how we can think about this. And I love all these notes. Thank you all for posting and playing along and sharing your favorite treat and asking questions, comments, whatever you can do. Algeria, that's awesome. Thanks for joining us. How wonderful. And what do I need to get to the bonuses? So I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, Agatha, but I will say that if you have bought the Mindful Millionaire book, then to get all the bonuses and the freebies that go along with the book, all you have to do is go into mindfulmillionairebook.com. So just mindfulmillionairebook.com. You scroll down halfway down that page, and you're going to want to enter your name and your email address. And quite frankly, if you don't have the receipt, I think that we've set it up so you might have to enter something into that box, but I'll just save you a step. As long as you bought the book, it's an honor system. You type that in, and then you will get a page that we're continuing to add to. So there's like meditations, there's worksheets, there's some of the things I'll be talking about here today, but there is so much to be found. And I will post the replay for today's workshop in that freebies page as well. So yeah, perfect. Yeah, Kindle, exactly. So just go ahead and enter that information there. And then if you did pre-order and you did not get access to the workshop that I hosted last week, feel free to send me an email and just share that with me, and I can get you the replays for last week's presentation. So hopefully that gets us going. And awesome. Thank you for those questions. So the key objectives for today is a big picture look inside the Mindful Millionaire book. It's going to be, if you don't already have it, my hope is that you leave this call and you're like, yeah, that's definitely something I want to check out. And you can get the Kindle for less than $10. I think it's like $9. I think Amazon is selling the softback copy for like $16.75. All the many local bookstores, not everywhere in the world, but many in the United States and Canada sell it. It shouldn't be too hard to find it. And sometimes people have to go through Amazon and they don't want to, and I'm sorry, but if you're international, that might be the only option. And we will be better understanding the wealth paradigm you're living in, exploring embodied, integrated, mindful living, and exploring what you most want and what may be holding you back from creating what you want, whether it's times of COVID or times, even in the past, you're like, yeah, I'm just not pulling it together. So I'm hoping to plant some seeds of what you could be doing to help yourself and give yourself permission to create a new wealth paradigm. And I define wealth, and prosperity being both the external economic, financial independence, financial freedom, as well as this inner freedom, and that they both go hand in hand together, that we don't have to say one is better than the other. We can say both and we're open to the possibility of having incredible fulfillment in our lives and being comfortable. Like, being broke is not typically, in the world that we live in today, a form of fulfillment, right? Like, we don't want to struggle with our finances. We want to have those set up so that we can succeed and thrive in all areas of life. So for a moment, because we are using chat, we have the ability to be here in this experience together. I wanted to just go through some circle principles. We use these in all of my workshops, and just take a moment to soak this in. Breathe, pay attention to your breath. We will be doing a meditation in a few minutes, and we'll dive into that. But even before that, you could just take a moment, right, to take a nice, big, deep breath and allow that breath to bring you into this moment. You might even do a root lock where you squeeze at the base of your spine. And as you breathe into that, just feel yourself letting all the noise, all the chatter, all the busyness of your life subside for the next 90 minutes, turning off the buzzers and beepers if you can, and allowing your focus to be here now. That's how you get the most out of this experience. To have fun. So, make jokes. You can totally make fun of me. I am totally comfortable with that. And if that brings like all of us laughing together, that's awesome. But have fun with your chat notes, have fun with questioning assumptions, have fun in this space that we're creating together. We are wanting it to be sacred and safe and comfortable, right? For us to be here and do our own work. And that means like being here now, letting go of judgment for yourself and for others. Like, that's the best gift you could ever give yourself. Like that narrative in the back, always going, yada, 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 just saying, you know what, for a little while, I'm going to let that subside. And I'm just going to be here now, fully present and loving myself and holding this sacred space. Take responsibility for yourself. I am definitely, if I'm doing my job, I think I should be triggering or provoking. Triggering is a terrible word. So let's just say provoking, inspiring, encouraging you to get outside of your comfort zone. And so when you take personal responsibility and you say, hey, the reason that this is probably uncomfortable for me right now is because she's saying something that I'm not sure I want to hear, but I'm going to look deeper into that. I'm going to look and see what I can learn that would help me, rather than just being like, Lisa's really annoying and I don't like this. And you could think that too, but I'm saying you're going to get a lot more out of it if you just say, I'm going to be curious of why I feel so uncomfortable in my body, or why this is kind of giving me some pressure in my head. So when we're practicing deep listening, we're questioning our assumptions, and then we're also expressing truth. Like when you tune into what you want to share, which is such a beautiful part of the chat in being here now together, then express your truth. We want to hear it. Share with us. Like, allow us to be a part of that experience with you. So hopefully, do we agree to those terms? Is that reasonable for you? I don't think I'm asking too much, but if you want to say, yes, I agree, then that's awesome too. I also just want to mention what I went through just now with the circle principles are the same ways that I manage the Mindful Millionaire Facebook community. This is the same sort of spirit. And I think in the world that we live in right now, like, this is a breath of fresh air. And I wanted to create that space. I didn't know a year ago when I started saying, hey, I want to bring a community together around the principles that I'll be teaching in the book. I didn't know what the world was going to look like. I didn't know about COVID, right? I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know the divisiveness was just going to get worse. And so the idea that we can create this really sacred space together and hold space. And it doesn't mean that we always have to be comfortable, right? It's not about just like sitting back and kicking back and being like, they always tell me what I want to hear. It's not like that, but it's like this loving undercurrent, like unconditional loving undercurrent is everything that I teach and that I hold space for. So same sort of principles apply to the community. I love this quote that my friend sent out last week in an email of his, and I swiped it and said, I'm going to share this because he said, there's nothing more powerful than a united group of souls ignited in a common cause with love at the core. I was like, yes, 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 yes. And also people come together and community gets formed as a result of us asking for help. Like that's what causes a community to want to stay together, is that we're comfortable asking each other for help and to expressing it, to saying, hey, I'm having a bad day. I'm really struggling. I've kind of gotten lost in the sea of fog of energy. Here's what I'm struggling with. Any suggestions? And like, we can come in and be like, hey, we love you. We support you. It's great that you're being vulnerable. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Like, that's the spirit of what we're trying to create in the Facebook community. Thank you. Thank you so much, Edie. So like I said, we're going to be talking about your prosperity potential today and how you can create wealth for yourself. And, you know, a few agreements between you and me were the circle principles, this spirit of holding space for each other and having it be safe. And also the other one is just the idea that I have noticed, especially in the past week, that I am thinking really big. And I think it has a lot to do with what I'm stepping into in my own life, in my own business. And that expansion of what I'm presenting to you may be bigger than you're ready to see. And we're just gonna like be okay with that for the next, 90 minutes. We're just like, this idea that it could be bigger, that my life could be bigger, that I could be expressing more, that I could be trusting more, that I could be more intuitive, that I could be wealthier. Like it's okay that we're talking about something bigger. And I'm saying this right now, not just for you, but also for me, because sometimes, and I don't know if you've ever felt this way in your own life, but there is a tendency to like play smaller than what you truly believe. Has anybody ever felt that way before? Like you're like, I don't want to be intimidating. I don't want to be overwhelming. I don't want to like provoke people to think that like in some way I'm talking down to them, or I don't know, whatever those stories are. Like, have you ever felt those stories where you're like, I don't know if I should say this because it seems so big and it may be intimidating to people. Well, what I'm asking for you today is like, be okay with the fact that I'm kind of letting that go. And I'm not just kind of, I'm fully letting that go each and every day. And so I'm just telling you that. Like, because I still feel like it's important to say that, okay? And sometimes it's uncomfortable as a result. So there you go. We all have different ways of thinking about that, but thank you. So what's the problem that I always start with problems. I start with fear. I start with like what's going on that keeps us from actualizing, right? This is all about actualizing. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we are trying to move beyond the scarcity and limited thinking, and we're trying to actualize and get the most out of our human potential. And what's the problem? So here's my take. The existing conditioned paradigms, a paradigm is like a thought pattern, right? That dictates, we get trapped inside of our paradigms. This is the way that we sort of the lens that we look out at the world from. So the existing paradigms that we have all been conditioned to believe in are not actually working the way that they used to, if they ever did, but we'll just say the way they used to. Things have changed. COVID is actually having a very big effect on the economy. I am not going to go into that so much today, but what I will say is that COVID is forcing those who want to continue to grow and expand to do things differently going forward. The same stuff that you were doing 6 months ago is not going to work in the times of COVID. I mean, love, unconditional love, acceptance, like that stuff's not going to change. Those are eternal truths. But I think that some of the ways that we've shown up in the past, especially when we're focused on limiting thoughts, those are being provoked so that we have to think about those limiting thoughts. Because if we bring in COVID combined with, and all the economic challenges and all the things that are going on around us, combined with limited thinking, it's a double whammy and it's going to hurt. And we're going to feel the pain of that. So what we're trying to think about is like, okay, well, what else? What's next? Financial struggle, systemic challenges caused by a society filled with scarcity thinking is not serving us, okay? Lack of understanding what true wealth building means is something that is being exhausted. Like, I feel like we're all curious. We're curious if there's a better way. We're curious if there's another way to invent the way that we think about ourselves and how we fit into the larger landscape of the economy, of the world, of commerce, of capitalism. Like, we're questioning a whole bunch of stuff, especially around race and the color of our skin, like moving beyond the idea that there is any reason that there should be a conditioned limitation assessed towards us because of what we look like, how we sound, where we come from, all of that. We're breaking down those walls. The problem is that we also don't always know the right habits that we need. I see that come up a lot. And that hopelessness breeds inertia. And that's actually what we're trying to avoid going forward. We're trying to avoid hopelessness. We're trying to get out of inertia. And I will also mention, because I see this a lot, many times we don't realize that we've actually been living in inertia for a while. And so when we try to build momentum into our day-to-day life, it's hard, right? Because it's hard. The physics says that it's harder to get the ball in motion than keep it in motion once it starts. So hopelessness is one way that we can get stuck in inertia, and we want to really watch that closely. So what's needed? Time to shift our paradigms, exit the existing problems and heal. This is what I think all of what we're here to do is we want to exit, even if it's just mentally, right? Our perspective, exit the problems, focus on our own inner healing so we can return back to the normal life with a new and fresh perspective. Learn the core elements of wealth building. Create more resiliency with our money and our businesses and in our lives, learn more about the habits that will be more helpful to us, foster the right mindset for success. And then, like I said, increase both inner joy and prosperity and external financial wealth. And, last week when I was giving the class, I was trying to explain a concept, and I just want to share it with you. And it's pretty funny, and I haven't perfected this story, but I'll do my best. So in the book, I wanted to give people hope that they could make some big changes in their lives, even if their past had looked a certain way, that was no indication of what the future had to look like. And that there was a process, I Prosper, inside the book, that you could use and apply on your own time to literally reinvent and recreate your future. So inspired by the 12-step program, inspired by Julia Cameron's work with The Artist's Way, inspired by a transformational system that I knew wanted to come through into the world to help people reinvent their paradigms around wealth and prosperity. Well, sometimes I get really stuck in trying to explain these concepts. So I had to write a 350-page book to be able to explain them. And I'm not done. There's more coming. But what I was realizing last week was, and the analogy that I feel like I like to share with people is, while there can be a lot of resistance to this idea of inner healing, or we always feel like we've done enough. I've done enough work. I've done my money work. I've heard all these things before. And I'm like, you guys, like, I've been doing my money work for all my life and I'm still not done. So you're really never done with this stuff. Like, this is about our own evolution, personally maturing into this very healed state. It's not about the destination as much as it is about the step-by-step transformation that we're going on, that's going on in our lives. But what I realized is that the life that we live gets very foggy and cloudy and almost like caked with gunk. So our psyche inside of ourselves is just like what I used last week was like a makeup brush. And so guys, probably not going to understand this, but maybe it makes sense with like a regular paintbrush or something. There's becomes a certain point in time where the tool, in my case, a makeup brush, is so caked with like gunk, mascara, eyeshadow, whatever, that it does not have the ability to take anything more on. So you could still keep putting it in the pot of makeup and putting it on your face and nothing's coming off. And I was like, last week had this happen and I started to clean the brush and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much on this brush. I can't believe I didn't think about cleaning it. Like it's just something, it looks fine. You couldn't tell there was so much dirt on it, but there was. And so when I cleaned it, all of a sudden, the brush went back to like operating in the way that it was supposed to. But as long as it was caked with dirt, right? And this is what happens in our lives. It's caked with, wounding. It's caked with trauma. It's caked with disappointment. It's caked with regret. It's caked with resentment. I mean, the list is far and wide of what happens. And each of us are accumulating all this stuff. And because we may or may not have an advanced practice that allows us to let go, to clean the slate, when we go out and we pay for a program and we go invest in something or we go read another book, if we haven't cleaned out the brush, cleaned out the psyche, there's no room in which to operate from. So the book or the teaching or the thing that we're doing may be a wonderful class. It may be so helpful, but if we don't have any space in which to take in, we actually miss the whole teaching. And I feel like this is what's happening right now, where we're being shown that we're carrying a lot of stuff. I mean, and this is the breakdowns that we see out there in the media, people breaking down, saying things, mean things, not treating people badly. I truly believe that everyone is perfect at the deepest level of their true self, but yet that caking that we go through causes us to forget who we really are and forget that the beauty that's deep inside of us and the genius that each of us have and that we bring into life every day. But again, it's clogged, it's blocked, it's not at its optimal level. And so the work inside the Mindful Millionaire and what we're learning here and what I teach in my coaching and in my workshops is all about first. We want to do some work in cleansing. We want to clear the slate. We want to create space in our lives so that when we do receive in this beautiful, helpful guidance, we can actually apply it to our lives and our money. Same thing for money, same thing for relationships, same thing for the health of our bodies. So does that make sense? Checking in, just use chat. Thank you. So the core elements of prosperity. These are just some things, right, that I've learned through the process of studying all of this. Your core values, when this is all about like, what is prosperity? What are we looking for? We are experiencing prosperity in our lives when our core values are in alignment with our actions and the ways that we're showing up in the world, right? It's integrated. Values are integrated with the things that we do. So often in life, it's not this way. We have all this pain and stuff, and then we go out and we do an action, or we like are super good at willpower. And so we're typically really on target with our actions. But if we were really honest and we looked inside, we would see that what we're showing to the world isn't always what's really happening inside of ourselves. So that's what we're trying to create more alignment around. This idea that when we know ourselves and what's most important to us, we can get closer and closer and closer to this experience of prosperity. That we definitely need to transform the conversation going on inside of our heads. When I was on this radio station on Saturday night, George Norrie said, well, what's the most important thing that anyone can do when they're setting out on a pathway to create wealth for themselves? And I said, number one, hands down, it is paying attention and closely monitoring the conversation that's playing out in the background of your head. That one thing, if that voice inside your head is running an unconditional loop of, you're doing the best you can, I love you, you are really trying here, I see how hard you're working, I love you so much. Like, if that's the narrative that's going on in the background of your head, your whole entire life is going to support that narrative. So when you change that, you change everything. But for many people, we have grown up in situations where that's not the narrative, and that's what our work involves. So that's the number one thing. Typically, from wherever we're at to wherever we're wanting to go, there is going to be a big shift in the paradigm and the way that we see the world in order to make a big difference, make a big change. And that quote from Einstein that says that you cannot solve a problem while you're trapped inside of the problem, paraphrasing badly, that is what we're talking about here, that we must reach a certain level of conscious awareness where we come out of the problem. Doesn't mean we have to solve it, but we have to be able to step fully out of the problem and be in a different level of awareness, of being able to see the problem in a completely different way, and then go back into the problem from this very healed state. That's when we create solutions that change the world. When we look out there and all the stuff that's going on in politics and capitalism and racism and all those things, if we want to solve those problems, we feel really compelled. We must come out of the problem. We must heal ourselves enough to be able to step out, look back inside, and see from this very, very deep understanding of what's going on, without blame, without judgment, without shame, without any of those states of consciousness. We look back and we see that it's actually really simple, and there are some things that we can do to make a difference in the world. So habits supporting the creation of what aligns with who you are and who you're becoming, more of your true self, which is what the book is teaching about. When we change how we feel about survival, so we go to the bottom, to the root, when we change about how we feel with survival, and we can think of money as just being a proxy to energy, right? It changes how we feel about all of life. When we're not just like so desperately trying to just like, what's in it for me? How can I take care of myself? What am I going to do? Oh my gosh, and we get in that downward spiral, and we're not so fixated by survival. We start to notice that there's something different going on here and so many more opportunities. And one way I like to describe prosperity is that it's this feeling, its ability to feel the fear, not say it's not, shouldn't be there, shouldn't be feeling it, blah, blah, blah. It's like, feel the fear, be present to it without resistance. Allow it to open your heart and your awareness and move forward from a place of love, wisdom, courage, and unconditional acceptance. Like, that's prosperity. Isn't how much money you have in the bank. I mean, those are beautiful things. They're wonderful things. But we start from this place of being able to be so resilient with life and the challenges that come, and being able to kind of like be a ninja where things come, the bullets in the Matrix movie come at us, and we're able to like to navigate, to move out of the way and say, well, it's not real. And I'm not even going to let it hit me anyways. So pretty fun when we think about movies, and I love those sorts of kind of ways of thinking. So, okay, so now is that time with meditation. We're gonna dive within, and I'm going to guide you through a chakra meditation. So if you haven't tried them before, it's pretty simple. I'm just gonna take us through all 7 awarenesses. It's going to be brief, but enough that I'm going to invite you to feel into the chakra, each respective one. See if there's some messages coming through. Just tune into that. And part of what we're doing when we come out of the meditation will be to tune into those messages. So if you have a piece of paper handy, I'm going to invite you to also work on an exercise after the meditation where we'll tune in. You're going to write some numbers, and we're just going to pay attention to like what is going on for us as we tune into our own rendition, our own experience of prosperity. And yeah, we're gonna have some fun with it. So that's awesome, Leslie, that you meditate every day. I can't say enough about the value of meditation and daily practice. You may know this, but if you don't meditate consistently for at least a couple weeks and then continue that practice, you don't actually get the benefits that you read about scientifically speaking. It takes a couple weeks of daily practice to have the benefits of meditation helping you. And when you stop for several weeks and then come back to it, you start basically all over again. Yeah, you're familiar with meditation. Yeah, it's easier than it was when you first started. But if you really want the benefits of like being able to go into this very soulful place, have greater control over your mind when upsets happen, be able to sleep better at night, like all those benefits that have been chronicled as positive ways that meditation affects us, you got to do it regularly to get access to those. So go ahead and get in a comfy position if you're safe to do so. If not, you can just kind of keep your eyes open, do what you're doing, and just be mindful of this process. And as you breathe in and out, you'll just take some nice, big, deep breaths and allow the breath to relax you. Breathing in, thinking relax. Breathing out, release. Can imagine that there are roots that come out of your feet, if that's helpful to you, and just imagining those roots are going down. It can also be from your sit bones going down into the earth where they mix with the soil and the rocks and the roots and the water. And they can go down as far as you want. But what you're looking for is just this feeling like when you're breathing in and out, you can just feel yourself surrendering to the chair beneath you. And this strong rooted connection to Mother Earth. And allowing the breath and this feeling of calmness to relax your body, relax the flow of your breath, relax the synapses happening within your physical body, slowing down and reaching into the deepest parts of you. This soulful sense of you. And bringing your attention to your spine. So starting all the way at the bottom, the root chakra, and then going all the way up to just above the crown of your head. And just noticing the space of that awareness. Breathing in to this area of your body and breathing out. And as you bring your attention down into the root chakra, the base of the spine and the area of the perineum. This red spinning disc of color. You can see it going clockwise, the clock facing outwards. And just noticing that energy of this red spinning disc is representative of safety, of survival, of security. You might even do a little root lock to really feel like when we do that, there's this clenching that occurs that just shows us what that means. Like we clench, bracing. If we think something's coming at us, we clench to protect. Just noticing that and letting the clenching go. And as you tune into this very earth grounded chakra and the messages around survival and safety, and just see if there's anything that's wanting to come through to your intuitive awareness of how that area is feeling for you, how you're doing. Sometimes it feels weak and sometimes it feels strong. You can even imagine like a scale. 0 is weak, 10 is super strong. Just noticing the number that comes as you tune into the root chakra. No judgment, just trusting if there's whatever number pops into your head. Beautiful. And so we're going to transition into the sacral chakra, this orange spinning disc in the lower belly, in the reproductive organ area. Spinning the same way, the clockwise, this feminine chakra, water element. So you can almost imagine there's this water element, orange color spinning, representing this deep sense of creation and also a feeling center for many of us. This deep sense of feelings and also worthiness at this profound level, not at the mind level, but really as this like deep sense of worthiness. I am worthy for sexual desire, right? I'm worthy of creation. I'm worthy of birthing my ideas from this area of my energetic body. And as you tune into this experience of worthiness, again, notice weakness and strength, 0 to 10, and just trust whatever number comes to mind or a feeling. That's plenty. And moving on, going upwards into the solar plexus. Here we have a yellow, fiery, kind of burning with some nice warm air, swirling yellow ball of fire in the area of the solar plexus, this representing your sense of power. And maybe even it feels a bit like control, being able to control your environment. A weakness, like if you feel a really strong weakness in this area, it may show up as wanting to have a lot of control. Not necessarily feeling like you have a lot of control, but wanting it deeply. So tuning into the sense of power, powerlessness, or very powerful, influential. Again, noticing if a number or a feeling comes to your awareness. And breathing into that. Transitioning up into the heart. I like to picture the heart like a beautiful room, green light filled with air swirling around the room. It's big and spacious, and you may just notice in the room the experience. This is the spectrum of feeling appreciated, loved deeply, which would give you a very strong sense of the heart channel wheel, very loved, appreciated, feeling really solid in that. Or on the other side, feeling like fear, regret, guilt sometimes gets stuck in that room, swirling emotions, lack of forgiveness. Like there's some things that have happened in the past and you're really struggling with letting those go. And they're showing up in the heart channel wheel in this room of green spinning light. And all we're doing is just noticing it. And even if you notice something and you notice that you have an intention in noticing it, that you want to let it go, that's fine. You can imagine. One way you can imagine is you're sweeping the room, or you're vacuuming the room and sucking it up or letting it go out the window or the door. That's fine. But here we're just tuning into the feeling that you get when you tune into the heart channel wheel. Strong would be a high number, 8, 9, 10. Weak would be, 0, 1, 2, 3. So just notice what that looks like and feels like for you. Moving up into the throat chakra. This is at the base of the throat, this beautiful sky blue swirling disc of light representing expression, trust, significance. Just noticing what comes through as you tune into the throat chakra, your ability to feel a sense of like, I am significant. I am trusting myself and others. There's a lot there, so I'm just going to give you a moment to notice weakness. I don't trust myself. I don't trust others. To strength, I'm very trusting. But I also have my boundaries. It doesn't mean that we don't take care of ourselves. It's not just like being gullible, right? Or naive. It's about just like, I got this. I know how to navigate. Noticing what number comes up there. Moving into the brow, the third eye that connects into the pineal gland. This intersection of our wisdom, all that education and training and life experience combined with this intuitive knowing. Like they're meeting here in this space where we have an intuitive sense of who we are and the fact that we are enough. Bringing all the parts of ourselves together in the brow, honoring it. And then again, tuning in to like weakness as it pertains to, and this feeling of enoughness. I am enough. And strength. And intuitively seeing what number comes up. No judgment, just acceptance and love. And then finally moving into the crown. Noticing the connection that we have, that you have with the divine, and however you describe that, God, Buddha, other spiritual teachers, feminine, Kuan Yin, Tara, whatever connects in at this level for you. And noticing your connection to the divine and being able to bring that divine energy into your human experience. And how weak or strong that connection is. And seeing what number comes forth. And as we tune into this energy, we can just feel the flow of almost like an infinity symbol, where perhaps it starts at the crown and it goes down. So the infinity symbol is being made with like the trunk and the head of the body, right? So it comes and it crosses to the backside at the heart, goes down through the root, comes back up through the sacral, the front of the sacral, crosses at the heart, goes up the back, to the crown and forward, and just notice that in beautiful figure eight infinity symbol, running this energy of awareness of all that you are, this beautiful, loving energy body that you are, here now in your awareness. And gradually, we're going to lighten our concentration. Come back into the body, breathing in and breathing out. And as we do that, we can begin to relax our concentration and come back into the space. Noticing how you feel, noticing the experience of being in your body, the awarenesses that you've gained about where you are on your journey today. You could do this same exact exercise tomorrow and have different experiences. We are fluid. We are always changing, evolving, learning, growing. And bringing your attention into the space that we have together. And like I said, if you have a piece of paper that's handy, I'm going to invite you to think about, writing a number. Perhaps, you start at the root and you work your way to the crown, or you can go backwards. It doesn't matter. But I want to invite you to just give a number that was coming through or that you feel now in each of these areas. So just go through. If you're, I'll just start from the root, like a number for the root, a number for the sacral, a number for the solar plexus. And just write those down one by one. And sometimes there can even be a shift, even from when you first felt into it and then you felt into another. And just fill that out for yourself so that you have it and you write it like root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, brow, crown. And then as you do this exercise, perhaps notice, where are you weakest and where are you strongest? And if you're comfortable sharing, you can just put that in the notes so that I know that you're with me. Which area is strongest and which one is weakest? Strongest crown, weakest throat. Beautiful. And in that, any surprises or realizations from that? Like, was that what you expected? Most all are needing some work. Yeah, there's that too. Trust that. And just the fact that you're, willing to do this or try it is beautiful, because we're tuning in to this very intuitive understanding of ourselves. And we can also notice, perhaps in the meditation, you noticed, these areas where, like, wow, you saw pictures, you saw experiences, you saw what was going on in your life and like how it translates to the chakras. And what I've found is that it opens up this whole world of discovery when we tune in. And I'm not going to go, I don't have enough time to go into this in great detail. I'll tell you about some options of how you can get this and kind of next steps. But what I've created in the book and what you're going to be learning more about as you dive into it is a process that allows you to notice the things that we're just doing, right? Through the meditations and being able to check in. I do that meditation that we just did every single day. It's very rare when I miss it. And what I'm doing is I'm checking about the areas that I want to pay more attention to, that I want to grow from. And after working on this for the past 6 years and developing this model and writing the book about it, I started to see that there were these ways that some of these things show up that equate to the small, what I'm calling the small self. And until we go through the process of identifying what's playing out for us, and by the way, I prosper. I can only write one book at a time. I focused on money, but I want to be crystal clear that the same work we're doing here applies to money, but you can apply the same process to your relationships. You can apply the same process to the health of your body. It is a universal map. And once you get the hang of it and you really start to apply it and you really start to see how it's helping you navigate and become more resilient and more oriented to the prosperity, the easier it gets to self-identify a challenge and then be able to know what to do. What's the antidote? What's the strategy? What's the habit that I'm needing to put in place so that I can reinforce and strengthen this? So this map is a map of human maturation, of the journey that we take from birth to death. And we're kind of doing it over and over and over again. And even though it doesn't show it on this chart, the way I'm organizing it for the far dark column where it says I for intention, these are organized in the same way where it goes down, not the way I've written it out, but it actually works where P is for pattern, R is for reclaiming your feelings. Like it plays out both ways. And that's how I teach in the book. You're learning I prosper both ways. You're learning it from a chakra perspective and also a process perspective. That's why it changes lives in such big ways. It's like the most powerful transformative tool I have ever witnessed. And I've been applying it in my life, and I've studied thousands of years of teachings. And this is just a new evolution of the chakra teachings for our modern day life. And that's why I think it's going to make such a big improvement in our landscape, in our mind, in our own inner experience, and then when we're headed. We also can look at it like a stair step where for each of us, it's different. Some of us are starting at the root. Some of us know that it's more around the solar plex chakra, but we're here. It's like the evolution of consciousness, thriving, orienting, influencing, there's a typo, valuing, actualizing, integrating, and flowing. These are the states that we're trying to have happen for us all the time, again and again and again. So we create this beautiful spiritual teaching loop that's always available to us. And again, you're not going to find this in the book because I was still developing it. And this is sort of the next evolution of the teachings that you're going to be learning. So this accents it. And it also gives you a perspective that I think is really powerful as you dive into the work, because you understand what you're doing. The other reason that this map is so powerful is it's decreasing overwhelm that the small self sort of pricks up and starts to make things seem like, there's just so much going on. The reason that models and frameworks are so powerful is they decrease the overwhelm. The way I manage this process is like, let's focus on the area that's weakest first, and then move to the stronger ones, not take everything on. We don't want to go try and do all 7, right, Joanne? Your goal is to just look at, well, which one might have the biggest impact in my life? And then I'm going to focus on that one. So another thing I wanted to share, and this is kind of moving into the yang, like what do we do with it? Several years ago, I was reading about a lecture that Viktor Frankl, the person, he survived the Holocaust. He was a psychologist. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning after that experience, but he came up with this diagram that he didn't actually write about. He just talked about it. So I just happened to fall upon it, and it was like life-changing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. I see what's going on and how his wisdom was being shared in this very simple matrix. So at the top, we have fulfillment. At the bottom, we have depression, so lack of fulfillment, if you want to call it that way. On the left, and I'm using his words, it was like failure. We could say lack of material success. We could say it that way. And then success was, financial success, we'll say. Or however you want to define that, but we'll just use it for that. And then this goes a little deeper. I've been using this chart for the past 5 or 6 years in my work because it's just so powerful. And I wanted to share it with you because I want to show you what happens to many of us in life. And first, I'll just quickly explain the quadrants, right? So in the upper left, you have fulfillment meets failure. So lack of financial success. So this would be the epitome of like the monk going off into the cave, right? There's no desire or interest in material success. I'm just wanting as much fulfillment as I possibly can get in my conscious awareness. And I'll share with you, there were several years in my life where I was practicing Buddhism and I was teaching meditation. And I feel like all that mattered was to master the art of contentment. And that's a worthy goal. There's nothing wrong with it. I was actually looking at like letting go of desire, letting go of interest in anything, but just understanding the mind, and everything else was secondary. And I needed to do that to help me because I was coming from the lower right-hand corner, which was I had a lot of material success, and yet I was still depressed. I was burned out. I didn't really know the meaning of life. This is what I was like 21 years ago. When my dad was killed, I found myself in this burnout. I was kind of bordering where I wasn't in rust out where you're depressed and materially, not successful. I had the material wealth, but I just didn't feel good. Okay. And so what often happens for us is we want the polar opposite of the thing that we're feeling. So we go into this quadrant that I did, which was all about fulfillment. And I didn't focus so much for many, many years on building material wealth. Like it was still happening, but it just wasn't that important to me. And, we also may notice too, like when we deal with grief, like when my mom passed away, I also found myself back in just all I care about is fulfillment, because I was fighting the forces of depression, and we automatically kind of gravitate to the opposite if we can. So that's what can also happen. And all along, as I got into this work, I often see people being in one of those two quadrants, content, and content may be like a little bit apathetic, like it's okay. It's good enough. I'm doing okay. Like you may have a certain amount of material wealth. Like maybe you might feel like it's enough. So you're sort of in that placement closer to the middle, but you still can see that what you really want to achieve is you're not pursuing it. You're not interested in it. You might think it's not possible for you to get there. So you're like, it's good enough. Like you might feel that way in the contentment box. It's good enough. That's fine. Okay, notice that. Also noticing that a lot of the world that we live in has really encouraged this success without a clear understanding of what personal fulfillment means, which leads us back to that lower right quadrant. I would say those are the two that are probably most common. What isn't so common in the world is when we come into that upper right quadrant, the abundance, this idea of successful financially and resource-wise, as well as personally fulfilled. And that's what I think he was playing with when he was giving this teaching. And I like to share it here because it causes us to think about where might you fall. And maybe there's times in your life where you've fallen into one bucket or another. What I've realized in my own journey is that the pursuit of the things that are most calling to us, for example, business, like I trusted, I didn't do this venture to like make a lot of money. I did not start teaching because that was like, I'm going to go make a lot of money. Like, great if I do, but that wasn't the impetus. That wasn't the reason. I was doing it because I wanted to find out if there was a way that I could just be in that quadrant of like teaching, which brings me great joy, combined with enough money that I could live comfortably too. Like, it would be okay. And as I've gotten in deeper and deeper into this work, I realized that there's always opportunity to expand my impression of what that means to be in fulfillment and material success. And once it's not a static thing, and it's like your consciousness expands and you're like, oh, that's what it feels like. That's what how I enjoy living. And then it grows just by being in it, by experiencing it. And so again, I'm just going to check in and see, like, where have you noticed where you've sat in the past, where you are right now, perhaps how the chakras are helping you understand kind of what's going on in your life. Any comments? You can just use chat. There's a lot here, and you might also notice where I think a lot of times if we fall into the rust out section, this is where we may have restarts. This is where we had to hit that lower left quadrant in order to be willing to make a change in our lives. And what's kind of cool is you don't necessarily have to go do the other two quadrants. You can just go and focus on both the fulfillment and the financial success. And I think that's what, for many of us who run our own businesses, that's what we're trying to achieve and what we create. It's both. It's not just the material success, it's both. Yeah, thank you. Claire, that's really helpful. The contentment, yeah, we can get really, it's like, well, it's good enough. And, I like to say the way to think about some of this is that if we feel an urge, if we feel drawn, then trust it. But we don't have to go out and make up the things that we're drawn to. Like, they're intuitively there when we lean into them. And even now, when I was writing the book or the things that have been happening this past year, I noticed that there are things happening now that I dreamed of when I was a little kid. There are things happening right now that I don't even know if I could have dreamed about them. I mean, it's like, but I see how curious I am and how this part of me when I was really young wanted to actualize back then. And now at 53 years old, it's just now actualizing. Like, how crazy is that? Only because I've leaned into this business. And I keep saying to myself, well, why not? Like, why not you? Why not try this? Why, like, every time you've taken a risk, it's turned out pretty freaking amazing. Even though you kind of, sometimes I laugh about it because I'm like, it does feel like you're jumping off the cliff. I've just gotten used to the experience of the positivity that happens after I let go of the old. And I'm willing to give myself enough permission to try the new, even if I know that I may fail really, really badly. Like, every time. It's not that I know that it's going to be successful. I want to be really clear. Like, I'm definitely like, yeah, this might not turn out, but my desire for the outcome is stronger than my fear. Therefore, I move forward. Let's see. So as you tune into this, I'm going to encourage you to just think about what it is. Yeah, there are days that you can go through all the quadrants. I would agree with you, and I can feel it's too hard. And yes. So what I want you to do is tune into the thought, like, what are you wanting to create for yourself? What do you truly want? And sometimes we might have to meditate and contemplate and think a lot about this. The book does that. I hope it's encouraging people to kind of think about, well, what is it you want to create for yourself? Is it a nest egg? Is it, a travel? Is it a business? Is it more time for contemplation? Is it more money? Is it like you need to pick something if you want to grow and evolve? Like, pick something. Now, I don't tell you that it's like just goal setting, just pick the thing and then it's all going to happen. I just know that when we pick something, the action of actually saying, I really want this, and giving it voice and giving it commitment, and we'll talk about that, it changes the whole composition of how we go about life, how we engage in life, what the thoughts that are coming into our minds, the beliefs that we've got that may be holding us back from that thing. Like, it becomes a teaching. That's why I asked this question. It starts with making a decision. What do I want for myself? The other piece is knowing why you want those things. Why do you want this? Why does it matter so much to you? You know, for some of us, it's just like, there's just been this yearning. Like, there was a yearning for a long time of like the idea, because I love books so much, that maybe someday I could actually figure out how to write a book. That yearning and curiosity, even though up until when it was finished, I still didn't think I could do it. Like, I still had that voice, you know, not saying that's a good thing, but I still had that voice, because until I had done it, I didn't actually know I could. How fun is that? Like, you got to do it, and then you learn that you can actually do it. You can't have somebody be like, you can do this, and have it be completely 100% believable if you've never done it. That's why we have to take the steps. We have to put the steps in action. So knowing your why, and that was, Simon Sinek, definitely. His book is great. And I love, I mean, early on is a big part of my journey. And then the last part of this is that when you make these, you might be doing it right now. Like, what do you want? What do you want to achieve? Why do you want it? You can ask yourself this questions later tonight, or, you know, if you watch the replay. But then the third step is very, very, very important. And this is what changes things for us, because we can want a lot of really cool things. This is not The Secret, right? Where you just like think and grow rich, or all the money just comes out of the sky, right? So are you interested, or are you committed to the things that you want? Because if you're interested, you're going to do what's convenient and what is most easy. You're also most likely to come up with stories and excuses of why you can't actually do it. You'll allow the present and past circumstances, COVID, problems, past experiences, all of that, to control what you think and do. And that's going to keep you stuck, right? That's going to keep you not moving forward. Interested isn't enough. We cannot change our lives by just being interested in something. It doesn't happen. I mean, it's a really great thought. I'd love it if it was that easy, but I've never met a, truly optimized individual who said it was easy. I just sat and meditated and everything came to me. Like, they actually did things to bring it into reality. And that's what we're talking about here. If you're interested, you won't be willing to go through the discomfort of changing yourself, because change is the thing that's required when you're serious about breaking free from an old paradigm, beliefs, habits, results that aren't getting you what you want. If you are committed, however, you'll do whatever it takes to bring what you most want into reality. I think this is where people just get lost. But this is so, so true. When you're committed, you'll take action in spite of your doubts and your fears. If you're committed, you'll upgrade your knowledge, your self-efficacy, your skills, your beliefs about what you think is possible for you to achieve. And when you're seriously committed, you'll choose to let go of what's holding you back. This happens to be a thing that I specialize in, right? About strengthening your mindset, about overcoming the mental and emotional obstacles. It's not that we're saying that those aren't there. They are there. And the question is what do you do about them? How do you help yourself, right? That's what I designed in the book. And you also are getting into a habit of overriding subconscious unpleasant emotions and automatic limiting behaviors that you may or may not know you are doing. Is this easy? No. Is it the most rewarding work of your life? Most definitely. And that's why I've devoted my life to writing this book, to teaching these principles, because I know how much it pays off in not just the short term, but in the long term. Because once you master it with one thing, how you do one thing is how you do everything. It changes all aspects of your life if you want it to. So I'm just going to tune into this note. Yeah, Janice, so many of us are really motivated to help others. And I would count myself in that camp. And sometimes the only thing that keeps us going forward is actually the commitment that we have for others. And I shared the story on Facebook about the other night I did the Coast to Coast radio show. I can't believe this happened, but I had my computer open, I'm in a hotel room. It's like, I think 10:30 at night. We've had our first segment. George started to interview me. And then we took a break for like 7 minutes. And I look over to my computer screen and the first thing is like, you're wrecking the show. And I'm like, how did this person even find me and get my email address in a matter of like 5 minutes? But he had, and he was like, just saying horrible things about me and like how stupid I was and my voice. And I mean, it was terrible. And I remember thinking to myself, he is just one person. And if I listen to this guy, I cannot do the rest of this interview. I said, but if I'm just like, he's got his own story, he's got his own thing going on. I triggered him in some way. But if I can just remember that there are all these other people out there that need to hear this message, and I just show up, like what he did was he provoked me to like really know that there were people out there listening, because sometimes you just don't realize. And I was like, there are others out there. And I upped my game. Like it transformed me, not in a pity party, but in like, damn it, like I have people out there. I am here. I have devoted 21 years to learning how to do this. I am going to show up and I am going to be my best self. And that was who came through. And reading the comments and stuff that are coming through from people and all the notes and stuff, it's like that place of service that I think we are all so inspired by. It totally showed up, and people are writing to me and like, I mean, just like life transforming email exchanges with people that honestly, the way they were talking, they were like about to go drive off a cliff. And now they're communicating with me and they're like, you've given me hope. And it's like, yeah, if there is nothing but that one thing that like you stepping in to your fullest presence in this life, like I feel I am trying to do, has such big ramifications in the world, right? We drop that pebble, and I think a lot of us are like trying to drop some big pebbles in the pond, and those ripples go out and we have no idea, but it is so worthy of our time, our energy, and our attention, because when we heal ourselves, we can go out and heal other people and not let that kind of BS stuff that happens. It's not going to stop happening. 5 minutes before I got on the show, I don't know what I was thinking. I was like looking at reviews. I went into Audible reviews. I hadn't even looked there in a long time. Gloria, you left a review, and someone left like the worst review. And I texted my husband. I'm like, I shouldn't have looked at this. I'm about to go on the radio show. Like, I'm going to try and drop it away. So it was 2 things in like an hour that were like, don't you dare shine your light. Don't you dare go out and, stand out and do what you're doing. And I was like, look at that. Like, you are being tested, and I'm rising to the challenge. And this is what we are. This is the practice. This is the work in that moment. That's actually where it all matters. All that 21 years of deep inner work for that moment to be able to rise up and be ready for the challenges that face us, because that's what life is all about. So yeah, that's what's going on. So we want to be committed. We don't just want to be interested. Interested is not enough. We want to be committed. And what do I have? So a couple just tips, and then I'm going to wrap up. What I realized, if we just go into the very like yang kind of sense of what we're trying to do here, right? So we're talking about prosperity. We're talking about creating wealth for ourselves. We're talking about the things that we might not have known already. And there's one thing that I have seen over and over again, and I wasn't teaching this because it comes so naturally to me. I forget that it's really, really important, and other people don't always think this way. And this is a very like type A kind of personality trait that I apply to my life, and perhaps you do too. But I want to echo that this goes for both developing a business, for developing wealth. One of the most powerful things we can do for ourselves is set that goal of like, what do you want to achieve? What do you want for yourself? Let's say you want $1 million in the bank in 20 years, like whatever it is. When you pick what you want to achieve, what you want to create for yourself, the cool thing is now you have a target. Now you have somewhere to shoot. Now you have somewhere to aim your attention towards. And I think where many people fall short is they're really good at visualizing what they want. They're really good at like kind of knowing where they are and maybe where they're stuck, but they don't understand the pathway to actually go from here to here. And this is what I'm really, really good at, which is reverse engineering. I look at like, this is what I want. This is where I want to go. This is what it's going to take. And I'll be really clear. This past 6 years, even though sometimes it didn't really feel like I was doing this, when I started my business, there were some really clear things. I was like, I want this, I want that, I want this. And for 6 years, talk about patience, every day I show up, whether I'm having great success or I feel like a complete failure, I show up and I'm implementing in the plan to bring what's happened into reality. That's how I got an incredible publishing deal with an incredible publisher. Like everything is very methodically thought out. This is what I want. And I think this is what it's going to take to get there. Every day, taking steps. This is all it takes, folks. This is very simple. We overcomplicate it. So in the case of what we want to create, I'm just going to use a couple examples. Let's say we want to have $1 million in the bank in 20 years. Maybe we're halfway there. Maybe we're close to being there. The numbers don't really matter. I just want to show you something, okay? I ran a compounding interest table. I have 20 years and I tried to figure out, well, how much money do we need to donate if we've got 20 years to create $1 million portfolio at 7% interest compounding. So what this graph shows us, if you look at the green line, it says that, we're going to be saving quite a bit of money. Not sure the exact number. Let's just say $50,000 a year, a lot of money, 60,000. I'll show you in the next slide that gives you a better way of getting there. And if we didn't have any compounding interest, it shows us that we would have saved about, what would that be? $420,000 without the compounding interest effect. However, because of investing or because of the things that we do to grow our money over time, we reach the $1 million mark. So at some point, we don't just have ourselves working on it. We have the benefit of our investment strategy or our, you're not going to get this in compounding interest by just putting money in a bank account, but with investing strategy, 7%. The past many years, we've been trending more at like 10%, but I think that's aggressive. I think it will be less than that. But the point is that it's possible. Now you know what you've got to do. And let's say it's $60,000 that you need to save every year because that's the goal that you have. Again, might be a lower number. So when we reverse engineer, what we do is we say, okay, fine, now I know what I got to save. I've got to save $60,000 every year to reach my goal. I'm taking this from the perspective of a business owner. So if I'm a business owner, I am, and I realize that I feel pretty comfortable of running a business or somehow figuring out how to create a business that I've got $200,000 in revenue, which for most, just to be clear, most coaching practices, there are systems and processes that should allow us, I'll say could allow us, by doing the same thing over and over and building a strong foundation, we would want any business that we start to at least be generating $200,000 in revenue, okay? Like the risks that we take as business owners are ridiculous. We want to shoot for at least something like that, okay? Just saying. So let's say you have $40,000 in business expenses because you're a service-based business, you don't have a lot of expenses, it's an online business. Then you add in taxes, let's say $25,000. Now you have a net of $135,000 to work with, okay? less personal expenses. Let's say they're 75,000, net savings, $60,000. So we're reverse engineering and we're deciding how to back in to like, how do I get there? Okay, well now the business that we've created that maybe in the past has been making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, we're like, well, that's not going to cut it because I can't reach my goals if I'm only making $50,000 a year. I need to think bigger. I need to expand my understanding of what it means to run a business, and I need to figure out the strategies so I'm not working myself to death. That's not what it's about. It's like, what do I need to create? How much do I need to charge for my products? Which leads us to the next one. So I was playing with this the other day. Again, it's not the numbers, it's the idea. So let's say you offer as a coach 2 programs, and one of your programs is $2,000 a year, and you need to find 70 people to pay you $2,000 a year, and you're making $140,000. And then some of those people really, really like you, and you're going to be giving them more services, and they're paying you $6,000 a year. You need 10 of those, and you are at $200,000. I think in many cases in business, we overcomplicate it. We charge too little. We don't think about the scalability and the business that we're creating, and we don't think big enough of what we're creating so that it can actually achieve our objectives. And these are the things that I teach in my coaching program. But I'm just wanting you to see that the problem with not engineering, reverse engineering, and setting very clear goals for ourselves is that we run the risk of never getting anywhere, never getting to the place that we really want, and never getting to the place that we really, really find great satisfaction in. So this was just one example, but I could take any challenge, anything that you want to throw at me, and reverse engineer it and show you what you need to do to get there. That's the cool thing about having 40 or 50 different jobs and working in so many different industries and areas and running my own business. Like, I could probably figure out any industry if you gave me enough time and I could do some research. Everything works this way. This is how big companies run their whole entire businesses. I mean, it's amazing how it's kind of simple. So again, what I want you to be thinking about now is just bringing these areas of yourself together, right? The inner journey, meeting yourself wherever you are with the chakra exercise. Noticing that one of the things that you can do to help yourself with the chakras is not just a mental exercise of like, oh, I'm going to go balance that. There's merit in it, but it's not enough. To really be firing on all cylinders or having these chakras being all strong require you to most likely go outside of your comfort zone and create something new. Lean into areas of your life that you may be hesitant and pulling back from or avoiding or making not important because they're too scary, because that's kind of one of the things we do. Like, it's not important. I don't want to look at that, right? So instead, we use the chakras to help us understand where we're working, what we're working on, what we're wanting to understand ourselves about. We smash it up against our wealth building journey. It may be leaning into investing because that's where we're ready to engage. It may be that we want to do more socially responsible investing. That's like an upper chakra thing that I'm working on right now with my investment advisor. I want all my money to go into social impact funds, and we're figuring out how that's going to look and what that entails. Like, each of us, it might be different. If we own a business or we're in sales, we might have some really interesting objectives for ourselves. And we're going to take that objective that we have in our business. We're going to look at what we're working on, and we're going to realize that they meet in between, and we can grow and expand and strengthen our chakras at the same time that we're earning more money, or we're saving more money, or we're managing our money or investing our money differently. So that's the idea of bringing the work all together. And here we are on that money journey. And I think that the key lessons here are about bringing it all together, about making sure that you have a plan to execute upon. One of the things that I've been focused on, and then I've got one last slide and we'll open it up to questions, is I have been a business coach pretty much since the beginning. So for 6 years, I've been coaching businesses in my practice. And many of the stories that I write about in The Mindful Millionaire came as a result of people coming to me for business coaching. And then we dove into the I Prosper process, and lots of really cool things happened for these people. But I chose to write The Mindful Millionaire to an audience that was more broad and not business specific. It was about building wealth and focusing on the inner journey and the external wealth journey. But what's just happened with COVID is it really has shocked me about how many people have not built strong enough businesses to withstand what's happening with COVID, or of course, in wrong place, wrong time. Like they were in one business, it's drastically changed and they need to reinvent, they need to pivot, they need to make some adjustments. And when things like COVID cause a collapse in some of the things that we're used to, it creates incredible opportunities in other areas. And so the more I leaned into that, I realized that I wanted to take all that I had been learning about business and channel it into taking I Prosper and creating a business-oriented coaching program in the fall that brings together the beautiful awakenings that happen as a result of private coaching, but in a group setting. And so just learning what I've learned, I've spent over $100,000 in the past 6 years just on coaching alone. I've seen what works great and I've seen what doesn't work so great. And then I've also made hundreds of thousands of dollars in coaching other businesses. And through all of that, I was like, you know what? I think it's time to take I Prosper, create an ongoing program, 6 months in duration, that will allow someone to come in, do that cleaning of the brush that I was talking about for the first 45 days or so. And then once we complete that, let's make space inside of our psyche, let's focus on a plan over the remaining 4 months of what you can create or what you can tweak or what you can do differently in your business and also in your wealth building to set yourself up for success. So we created this 6-month program. It's not just me. There are other coaches that are a part of this. I'm still in the negotiation of bringing in like key elements that can help a business, especially those that are realizing that through the time of COVID, you're moving more online than ever before. Things like Facebook marketing and other marketing and sales tools that may not have been needed in the past, we will be offering as part of this program. So it's very deep, it's comprehensive. And the cool thing is if it's like calling to you or, you're like, wow, this is interesting. This is a really good time. I'm ready to do some reinvention. I'm ready to double or triple my business. Like that's the kind of thoughts that's going on in your head. It's a perfect time because we are designing this program, especially for the fall. We're going to take on 30 people at most. Super intense as far as the resources that we're providing. And I'm charging less than half of what it ultimately will be for that first run through, because that's how I roll. I want people to be like so engaged and getting so much out of it, because the success of the people who participate are going to help us make the program even more successful in the future. And so by being a part of the first time through, then you get to benefit from that. So I will send in a follow-up note. If you're interested in learning more about it, I can send a follow-up and you can set up a time to talk. It's it's on an application basis. It's something that we just want to make sure that people are really ready to make those sorts of commitments, because again, the group is helping. That group energy is really, really important. We are supporting each other. We are holding the space for like what each person is what's possible. And so it's important that there's some foundation procedures that you already have in place in your life and in your business, because everyone needs to be operating at a very cohesive level that we feel like, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I can do this. And we want to make sure that we're not, tripping each other up. And so that is something that's a really big deal. And I think that I'm super excited. I already know people who are joining us, and yeah, that's something that I can more than happy to provide more information about. So the next steps, like I said, I'll send you a note, and you can book some time with me. I'm offering also, if you wanted to do a coaching session with me, I still have a few of these available, where typically we'll do this one-on-one coaching. It's kind of similar to what you'll see in I Prosper, where it's focused on the money breakthrough, but it gives you a sense of like, hey, are we really good at working together? Can I make can our engagement of working together really serve you? And so that's another option. I'll send that out. And then if not now, continue to read the Mindful Millionaire book. Buy it if you haven't already. Join the Facebook. I'm going to be doing Facebook Lives most Thursdays at 2:00. It'll be some kind of instruction or interview or talking about with people that I find deeply inspiring and feel like they can share lots of knowledge with you. Post your comments and questions in the Facebook group as you move through the book. For some of you, you've already participated in Infinite Abundance, but we are about to launch it again on Thinkific. If you've bought Infinite Abundance in the past, we will be sending you a note that says, hey, would you like to move to the new platform, or at least download things in your old platform before we close Customer Hub? But there's new videos, there's just that process. In fact, anyone who joins I Prosper, which starts in September 14th, I'm going to encourage you to read the book a couple times through, to do Infinite Abundance, so that by the time the program comes together, you are like totally dialed in, and that mental chatter is, you've got some control over it because you'll get the most out of it. And Infinite Abundance is my best program. It's 28 days of daily meditations and journaling prompts that go together with the Mindful Millionaire book. And I'll make sure and get that diagnostic map to you because I think it's a great resource. My husband and I spent a whole entire day a couple weeks ago creating it. I was laughing because I was like, well, I really would have liked to have had this done by the time the book was done, but it just wasn't the time. So here we are. It's a super cool accompaniment of like explaining what's going on at one level. There's actually more and more deeper levels than are what is covered on that chart, but that is what is going on. So there you go. Yeah, each of these, I'll just share before I open up to questions. So for the root, the sacral, each of these have a excessive and recessive aspect to them. So not only do you have the one that's on the screen, there may be other patterns that are playing out. And so eventually by the time September comes, we'll be looking at all three forms of how the root chakra can play, both in an excessive way and a recessive way. There's some other added elements to it, but it's amazing. And it's not that I like to overwhelm people with information, but what I have found is the more we understand what's happening for us and the patterns and the paradigms that we're approaching life, the less power those paradigms and those ways of thinking have on us. So that's why self-discovery changes our lives so much, because we're like, oh, this is what's going on. And now it doesn't have to control me anymore. So that is what we've